Hi, and welcome to Cal Science. My name is Linda Sharpenberg, and I'm the Technical Director here. I'm meeting with you today to discuss cooler packing. When you receive a bottle kit from Cal Science, you should get inside a lot of different items. One would be possibly chains of custody, unless you have your own for your company. Other items, custody seals, labels for all of your containers. In addition to these items, you should also be receiving, if you're sampling with glass, bubble bags, bubble wrap, and resealable bags. Included in your kit will be a temperature blank, which needs to be returned with the cooler. And if you're sampling volatile organics, VOCs, you're going to receive a set of trip blanks per cooler. Normally we send you 2. Most labs send 3. We keep 1 vial back as an extra quality control check. So if we get hits in your samples, we can run the source blank to see whether it was our water or actually the transport. You're going to receive loose containers, glass or plastic, BOA vials. You may receive encores or TerraCores. All of these items come in your kit. If we're drop shipping to you, you may receive in bulk, which would then be in boxes. We'd like to talk about coolers, because sometimes you'll receive coolers that have drain plugs and sometimes you will not. If you receive a cooler with a drain plug, we want you to take a look at it. There should either be caulk inside the hole, basically plugging it up, or we want to make sure that you, if not already done, tape this shut. If your cooler leaks, whether it's just water from the ice that you've packed your samples in, the commercial shippers will stop shipment until they check with you to figure out what it is. At that point, you may be missing holding times, or temperatures may be exceeded upon receipt at the lab. So we want to make sure you guys check for that. We also would like for you guys to line your coolers with large garbage bags. Whether they're clear, white, or black, it doesn't matter. We just want you to line the cooler. This is just an extra cautionary step in case stuff does melt or leak. If you are shipping glass, we'd like you to line the bottom of your cooler once you get the bag in with some kind of bubble wrap or other absorptive device that'll help to cushion the samples in case the coolers get dropped. All of your glass containers should be put in bubble bags, whether it's BOA vials, trip blanks, large glass, small glass, it doesn't matter. All of these should go into bubble bags. And as you're packing your cooler, we'd like you to intersperse plastic with glass. Now, some people will just put the plastic bottles just loose inside the cooler. Even though you're bagging up your other glass containers, they just put the plastic loose in there. We really encourage you to put your plastic bags, to put your plastic containers in plastic bags as well. And part of the problem is, this goes for glass too, is if your label gets smeared, or the label actually comes off because it's been sitting in water, we won't be able to identify what this sample is. So proceeding with analysis probably is not going to happen. We will contact you if this does occur, but just so you know, you might be looking at resampling. There's some other things that have to happen. Again, we encourage you to intersperse glass with plastic when you're packing your cooler. And even though encores and TerraCores come in bags that are resealable, this Encore or this TerraCore, we really encourage you to also put them in resealable bags to help protect them. Again, if you have leakage or the ice melts because the shipment gets held up for any reason, just to help protect the sample from becoming contaminated or cross-contaminated. So once we get all these items packed in here, kind of intersperse them, glass and plastic, glass and plastic. Use your plastic to help protect your glass from banging against each other. Once you get all this done, if you have VOCs, make sure you get your trip blanks back in your cooler. They should stay with the cooler and with your samples at all times. We want you to take the temp blank and put it near the middle of the cooler. Get it in there. That's what we read when this gets to the laboratory. We shoot that with an IR gun and check it. If we don't receive a temp blank, we're having to pull out each sample container and measure it individually. Saves us time, saves you time. Kind of a better reflection of the cooler temperature. Once you get this done, we can talk about ice. We look at different types of ice. There's blue ice, there's dry ice, and there's wet ice. We don't recommend blue ice. It's meant to maintain temperature. So if you happen to be sampling in a warm area where your samples were not refrigerated, they go right to the cooler, your blue ice is not going to chill that sample down. Just the opposite. The sample's going to warm up the blue ice. And unless you're sampling tissues, sediments, or you're freezing encores in the field, dry ice is not recommended. If you have a glass container with liquid in it and you freeze it with dry ice, it's going to crack the container. You're going to lose that sample. So we encourage the use of wet ice, and you can do wet ice one of two ways. You can either use bags of wet ice. You'd put one bag on the bottom. You'd put your containers in. You'd maybe intersperse other bags of ice between the sample containers, and then you'd lay a final bag on top. Or, our preferred method is to just take loose ice and dump it in the cooler. One of the rules of thumb that we use when our clients ask is to tell you that approximately 25% of your cooler should be ice. If you're sampling at a warm temperature and your samples are warm, or your shipment's going to take more than 24 hours, some stuff that comes from Guam or Hawaii takes sometimes 48 hours, you might even want to make 50% of your cooler ice. There are some specialty coolers out there that are supposed to be better insulated, but the risk is yours. You want to make sure your samples arrive to us at 4 degrees pretty much. You don't want to take a risk by using too little ice. Once you get the ice in, samples are all packed, everything's pretty well settled in, we'd like you to take the bag and either with tape, zip ties, or just by tying it off, we'd like you to secure what's inside here. The last thing you need to worry about is your field documentation. Now you've got a chain of custody for all this. You should have checked it all to make sure your IDs are correct, your methods are on there, all the contact information is correct. Now you're going to sign and date that chain of custody. After you do that, we encourage you to put it inside another resealable bag. And we'd like you to take that resealable bag and tape it to the inside of the cooler lid. This will keep the chains of custody with the samples in case the cooler ever gets lost in shipment or there's other problems. Now that we have this secured in here, we're going to close the cooler tight. And this is where the custody seals come in. You should have at least one custody seal on your cooler. You want to put it between the body of the cooler and the lid. And in effect, we actually suggest that you use 2 custody seals. They can both go on the front, one on the side. It doesn't matter. Once you get your custody seals on your cooler, you're going to want to tape over them with a little bit of tape. In the same manner that you put the seal on. And once you have custody seals secured down on here, you're now going to tape around the whole entire cooler, all the way around the seam, a couple of times with some heavy-duty tape. And then we encourage you to wrap both ends of the cooler in this manner. In the end, what you wind up with is something that looks like this. It's secured. If anybody has to access this to get in, you'll know it, that it's been compromised because the seals will be broken. Now that you've got it packed like this, everything's here. It's ready to go to your commercial shipper. I'd like to thank you for joining us here today to talk about cooler packing. I know some of these questions come up a lot. You can always contact your project manager here at CalScience, and we always have great resources available on our website, calscience.com. Thank you for joining me.